Hello, it's me, Ana Merino. I'm a Spanish writer. I'm at the Facebook page of Point of Contact Gallery in Syracuse. I wish I was there in Syracuse, but I am in Madrid. I was supposed to be there with all of you in the gallery. It's a beautiful gallery. I really love Syracuse. I really love New York, the state of New York. My heart from Madrid is with New York also. So here I am, getting ready to participate in this wonderful series in the gallery Point of Contact at the University of Syracuse. And because we couldn't celebrate poetry there in the beautiful gallery, well, I'm going to read from Madrid, and I'm going to try to bring some poetry to this difficult experience. So thank you everyone who is going to be joining us in this experience. It's always a kind of a strange experience to be talking to your telephone and sending lots of love to everyone, hoping a lot of people can enjoy this experience. And I have a series of poems, and they are very, very nice poems, I believe. And the translation is a beautiful translation by William Leer. William Leer is a translator. He graduated on an MFA in translation at the University of Iowa, and we had the opportunity to work together to share ideas. So I think it's a nice opportunity to celebrate poetry, and this series that is developed by Point of Contact Gallery, and is going to be also in a beautiful book that you already can pre-order, and I will tell you several times, Corresponding Voice, Volume 13. And well, I like the Cruel April series. I think they took it from Eliot, The Wasteland, that beautiful April. April is the cruelest month, and in some way it is. And this month is being very cruel for many of us, and I send all my love to everyone who is having a very hard time. So I hope this poetic experience can give you some joy. I'm going to first thanks all these people who is supporting poetry every time, and the sponsors of this beautiful series that Point of Contact Gallery does are different important organizations like Syracuse University College of Art and Science, the New York State Council on the Arts, Coalition of Museums and Art Centers at Syracuse, CNY Arts, Syracuse University Department of Language, Literature and Linguistics, and of course poets and writers. So there is a lot of people making possible that poets keep sharing love for poetry and keep telling you stories. So I hope you can enjoy a little bit. Let me tell you a little bit about me. Okay, I'm a poet. I'm known as a poet because I started writing poetry since I was very young. I'm also a fiction writer. I won an award called the Nadal Award for fiction in January. So I've been on tour with my fiction book, The Map of Affections, El Mapa de los Afectos, and I was on tour in Spain when the outbreak of the coronavirus happened. So I remain in Madrid. I'm in isolation since more than a month ago, and here I am trying to work teaching online with my students, and of course sharing my passion for poetry with everyone. So, and if the semester were okay but didn't happen, my plan was yesterday I have two of my greatest students making their PhD defense, and I was going to fly 2 days ago I was going to fly yesterday to Syracuse, and today we were going to be at a Point of Contact Gallery, but unfortunately didn't happen. But here I am, happy to share my poems. And I'm going to first, I think I'm first going to read the poem. Well, first I'm going to read it in Spanish, and I'm going to tell a little bit about the poem. El primer poema, the first poem I'm going to read is titled Time to Move, Tiempo de Mudanza. And it's a poem I wrote long time ago, but I think it's not just yet published in a book. And it's about this sensation when you move on, cuando te mudas de casa. So I know we are all inside our houses and we cannot do any moving, but let's think about the poem and the sensation of moving. Tiempo de mudanzas. Lo que quedaba era mi casa vacía, el espacio claro que dejan las cosas que se tuvieron que ir de un día para otro en el furgón de la mudanza, el rastro del detergente y su limpieza meticulosa, adornada con la rabia de los minúsculos desaciertos, la casa que nunca fue mía, la que no me dio tiempo a colonizar con mi desorden, mi identidad de pelusas, mi síndrome de Diógenes, de mujer vieja, guardando papeles, de palabras transparentes, hojas muertas de mi propio otoño, el embalaje de la vida cuando cruzas el umbral de los 40 y haces cajas con documentos que ya no valen nada, pero quieres conservarlos porque el vacío da más vértigo que esa acumulación, que esa muralla de bloques de cartón y vida densa, de muebles desgastados y alfombras enrolladas. El almacén, el guardamuebles, la pequeña cueva donde el indio yo se alimentó de murciélagos, la locura circular de las mudanzas precipitadas, la huida de las llanuras, la enfermedad de los sin tierra que envejecemos demasiado lejos y nos arrepentimos cada día de ser nómadas, de guardar la vida entera en cuadernos y agendas, de sentirnos extranjeros en todos los países, tanta transformación, tanta capacidad para adaptarme, para mezclarme con el hielo sin derretirlo, para cambiar la voz y modular los tonos, tanta tenacidad, tanto esfuerzo, para ser parecida a la extrañeza. Well, reading the poem now, I'm realizing this is a poem about this strange sensation of people like me who we share life with two countries. We love two countries. We share our life. I've been 25 years in and out from Spain to the US. So this is a poem of all the movings I've been doing over these 25 years, because I've been living first. I was at Columbus, Ohio, then Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, then Boone, North Carolina, then Hanover, New Hampshire, then Iowa City, Iowa, and in the middle, I was from one place to another, visiting my family and friends in Spain, also meeting a lot of people in different places. So this is a poem about me moving in different places and all my experience with that moving around. I'm drinking some water on one of my favorite cups that I have here in Madrid, and it's a Corto Maltese. Corto Maltese is a character from an Italian comic artist called Ugo Pratt, and I really love this cup. And I have it since I was in college in Madrid, so every time I'm in Madrid and I use it, I feel nostalgia from my early years. So I hope you have patience with my English, because before I was trying to practice and I was like, wow, I've been 1 month on tour in Spain and 1 month in isolation in Spain, and where's my English? So it's funny. So please be patient with my English, trying to read the beautiful translation that William Blair did, and I'm very grateful to William and his careful translation and the opportunity we had to speak about poetry on the years we share in Iowa. Time to move. What remained was my empty house, a cleared space left by the things that had to travel overnight in a moving van, traces of detergent, painstaking cleanest lines adorned with the fury of tiny missed spots. The house was never mine. I didn't have time to colonize it with my disorder. House dust was my identity, the Diogenes syndrome of an old woman guarding papers full of transparent words, the dead leaves of my own autumn. The packages of life when crossing the threshold of the forest. You fill boxes with documents that are worth nothing, but you want to preserve them because emptiness brings more misgivings than this accumulation, this wall of cardboard boxes, life condensed, worn out furniture, rolled up racks. The warehouse, storage facility, the little cave where twins in Junjo ate bats, the circular madness of hurried moves in flight of the plains, an affliction of those without land, growing all too fast, every day regretting we are nomads, our entire lives kept in journals and agendas, feeling like foreigners in every country. So much transformation, so much capacity to adapt, to mix with the ice without melting it, change that voice and modulate the tone, so much tenacity, so much effort to be like the strangeness. So I hope makes some sense what I was reading in English. It's always tough to read in English. It's always an adventure, especially when you're Spanish, because I think even I've been many years in the US speaking English, you have a tendency to translate or to keep your Spanish accent holding the sentences. So I hope you have curiosity and you will look for Corresponding Voice Volume 13, and is where you are going to find these poems, and is where you are going to have the opportunity to read it in English with the right noise and the right accent. And one thing, one poem that I want to read is La doble vida. It's a short poem. La doble vida. Nadie te pidió que entraras con ese gesto turbio de angustia febril a hacer de la tristeza un bordado de lágrimas. Has llegado segura en tu misterio como el idioma nuevo de los abismos que se descifran en un solo grito. La vida que nos une comenzó en el regazo de mis sueños y fue enhebrando en ti el hilo de una pena parecido al amor desesperado, a ese dolor abierto de una herida invisible que no puede sangrar pero nos duele y en su escozor mortal se viste de promesa, de salvación extraña, endulzada en nosotros como una enfermedad inexistente. Well, let's hope I can make sense when I read it in English. Okay, the double life. Nobody asks you to enter without that murky expression of feverish distress. Embroider tears of misery. You arrive certain in your misery like a new language from an abyss, deciphering itself in a solo cry. The life uniting us began in the arms of my dreams. A thread of sorrow got tangled up with you in a desperate love, the open pain of an invisible wound that couldn't bleed but caused us grief, and it is deadly burning, dresses in promises, a strange salvation, sweetened in us like an imaginary illness. Oof, it's tough, eh? It's tough when you read in English and you're like, what I'm reading? So I recommend you to look for that Corresponding Voices Volume 13 to figure out the right pronunciation, because I can be very goofy when I read in English. There is a poem that I'm going to read now called Almas Gemelas, Twin Souls, and it's a poem I like it because it was a poem that gave me an idea of a play. So I write, besides fiction, I write also theater, and I love theater. I love writing theater, and I wrote a dystopic play that was published 3-4 years ago, and 3 years ago, I put it on a stage in Iowa with community theater in Spanish. And the play is called La Redención, The Redemption. And it's a play about a dystopic world and happen in the future, in a near future where the land is full of waste and contamination, and there is some people working in a recycling treatment plant. And it's the story of two friends, two women, and one is convinced that the salvation of the humans is going to come because extraterrestrial life is coming to the planet to help us, and the other not. The other is having a difficult time. So the interesting thing is, first I wrote this poem, and in this poem I found all, the energy of my two characters to write a complete play. So I really have a lot of affection for this poem because it gives the idea of a play. It's very interesting. Almas gemelas. El año que te visitaron los extraterrestres, a mí me secuestró la tristeza. Era una sombra inmensa, parecida a la que proyectan las nubes cuajadas de tormenta, una sensación ominosa de abismo en la garganta que me hacía escupir amargura y flemas. Hubiera preferido encontrarme con seres intergalácticos llenos de luz y que me diesen el don de la dicha anidando en las palmas de mis manos, aprender con un gesto a curar el aura gris y sus dolencias. Ese año en el que los planetas abrieron sus compuertas de mundos paralelos, a ti te tocaron las estrellas con su aliento de horizonte habitado y a mí me despertó la realidad, sudada en los desvelos del que se siente solo y ha perdido la fe, que se inventan los rezos. So it's a poem about two perspectives, two friends, and how one is talking to the other. So, twin souls. The year extraterrestrial visit you, I was abducted by sadness. There was an immense shadow like something cast down by storm-filled clouds, an ominous feeling, an abyss in my throat, caused me to spit out bitterness and phlegm. I would have preferred finding myself among intergalactic beings, full of light, who gave me the gift of happiness, nesting in the palms of my hands, learning how to heal with a gesture your grey aura and its maladies. This year, when the planets opened their portals to our parallel worlds, you were touched by the stars, their horizons inhabited by breathing beings, and reality awaked me, sweet, dampened in insomnia, where one feels alone, having lost the faith or prayers invoke. So you can see the two different characters and how life was happening to them in different ways. So, yep, that's the way a poem can convert into a play is very, very interesting. So there is different poems and it's a great group of poems. So if you like what you are listening to, and I will tell you, go and get pre-order Corresponding Voice Volume 13 because it's a great volume, and I love this idea of bringing poets from different languages and the beautiful experience of translation. I think translators are fantastic, and they find a place to bring poems in other languages. So I have I'm very grateful to the ways translators happen in our life and can communicate what we feel in different languages. So William Blair, thank you for the time you took to do this work, this translation. Now I'm going to read another poem, El pensamiento de Circe, and it's a poem where we know a character that is Circe, and I like the character of Circe. I think is a very strong woman, and is why I wrote this poem, to celebrate strong women. La serenidad premeditada de mi instinto y su compasión inmerecida mezcla el deseo con sus ritos de sombras, condensando los murmullos de amor absorto. Atracción equidistante, donde todos mis esfuerzos desmenuzan su ser en el aliento que respira partículas minúsculas de apetito y paciencia. La magia es una piara de hombres que retozan en el fango y se olvidan de ser simples mortales, husmeando la vida más silvestre, mientras mastican gruñidos y desperdicios. Tu desnudez en mi abrazo, tu indefensión despojada te salva. No te convertirás en uno de ellos. Well, let's try if I can manage in English. Because I've been reading it before and it's funny. You practice, but in the moment you have to read it out loud to everyone. And I know I'm speaking to the phone, but I know all of you are behind this magical mirror. It's like Alice in Wonderland. No, you are there and it's beautiful. It's something nice from this digital experience to know that there is wonderful people, outside there in their houses. So my heart is with all of you. Thank you so much for being here in this reading. And imagine that you are in the Great Gallery. So, Circe's thoughts. The deliberate serenity of my instinct and its unwarranted compassion mix desire with their shadowy rituals, condensing whispers in a bewildered love, an equidistant attraction where all my efforts share their being into breath, respiring tiny particles of hunger and patience. The sorcery is a earth of men who gamble in the mud, forget how to be ordinary mortals, sniffing around in the wildlife while they grunt and chew on scraps. A nakedness in my embrace, your bare helplessness saves you. You won't turn into one of them. So, I'm going to keep giving you a few other poems and then I will be happy to answer some questions because maybe you are curious for something. I hear blah, blah, blah talking and maybe you have some questions and I will love to give you an answer and give you, some perspective. This is a poem contra las pesadillas, against nightmares. And we are living a very difficult nightmare, I believe. So let's see if this poem can help us to handle this difficult nightmare. Contra las pesadillas. Como si las pesadillas se hubieran alineado en una misma noche para negociar el peso de tu alma en la balanza del tiempo, hoy vinieron a verte los malos sueños. Hicieron de tu vida su campo de batalla, afilaron sus uñas en tu mala conciencia, en la sed sigilosa de tu apetito insomne. Se hicieron un lugar en tu penumbra y quisieron hacerte creer que el peor de los castigos era la soledad y te ofrecieron a cambio su condena eterna, su abnegada presencia de noches tenebrosas en el vacío. Allí estaba tu vértigo mezclando su cansancio con un pozo de culpa que dejaba manchados los fondos de las tazas, el café mal filtrado de la rabia inquietante, las migas esparcidas acariciando el eco de los malos presagios, bullendo en los insultos que suenan a venganza. El descanso lo sabe, dormir es un hábito sagrado, las mañanas se atreven a borrar esas sombras de abismos enredados. Evapora tu angustia, ahora que es de día y puedes conjurar cada desvelo con una siesta larga en mitad de la noche. El amor delicado de las sábanas que se abrazan a ti y acomodan sus hilos de algodón sobre la piel de tu esencia abatida, las plumas de la almohada suspirando contigo mientras cierras los ojos, los silbidos del aire que descansan son el mejor hechizo contra las pesadillas. Well, this poem is about how to try to handle nightmares and how nightmares are very tough and sometimes just to be in bed and to hug yourself and try to sleep and try to find the peace of sleepy is going to help. Well, let's try in English again, and I'm going to try to make sense. Against the nightmares, as if nightmares had aligned themselves during the night to arrange the weight of your soul on the scales of time. Today, bad dreams came to you. They made your life their battlefields, sharpened their nails on your guilty conscience in the secretive thirst of your sleepless desire. They made themselves a place in your shadow and wanted you to believe the worst of nightmares was loneliness. They offered you instead the eternal sentence, their selfless presence in the nothingness of dismal nights. Your turmoil was there, mixing its exhaustion with a trace of guilt, leaving stains in the bottom of cups, bad coffee filtered by disturbing anger, scattered breadcrumbs caressing the echo of bad omens, boiling in the insult of that sound of vengeance. Repose knows it. Sleeping is a sacred practice. The morning's there to erase the shadows not up in the abyss. Your distress evaporates now that it's day, and you can conjure up each worry with a long nap in the mid-afternoon, the delicate love of the sheets embracing you, draping their cotton threads over the skin of your despondent soul, the feathers of the pillow singing with you while you close your eyes, the sleepy sibilance of air is the best charm against the nightmares. Well, this is talking about how nice is siesta. You know, how great is to sleep a siesta in the middle of the day. So I think if you are having a hard time, sleep siesta. You know, try to practice the siesta in the, after around 3, 4, 5, a little nap of half an hour, read some poetry, try to relax. You can do also some meditation. I think in some way this poem is talking about that, and do it with, with a kind of, affection. And I think it's been a long time. You've been so lovely to be with me here, and I would love to have the opportunity to give you a space for questions, and thank you again for being here. I'm going to read a poem now. It's a short poem, and it's about soccer. It's about football, and I'm going to tell you what I wrote. I wrote several poems about football, and it's because, well, I find soccer pretty interesting. And how I'm a teacher, I discovered in Iowa, going for different communities. When I'm kind of doing recruitment for students in high schools, there is a lot of Latino students that they love to talk about football, about soccer. And soccer suddenly became a very interesting tool to attract young students to take literature and culture classes, because there is many cultural elements that can be aligned with soccer, and you can work with that. So I developed a class on soccer, and I had students who suddenly were reading books, reading poetry, watching movies, and learning how to analyze. So I ended up writing also myself poems about trying to find the poetics of soccer. And here is a short poem about that experience. Antes del juego. Alinearse, ponerse en posición para que fluya la emoción en las gradas, esos gritos de júbilo mezclados con el ansia común de los deseos. Cada sombra en la hierba reconoce sus miedos cuando sale a batirse en el duelo de las piernas desnudas. Concentrarse, saberse en el espacio de la cancha como pieza esencial en movimiento, que defiende y conserva posiciones, que se adelanta y busca entre los huecos el instante armonioso, la precisión del pase, los ojos hermanados que ayudan a lograr en cada intento el gol de la victoria. So I took, this sensation. I tried to put myself in the place of the jugadores, the soccer players, but I did this kind of epic twist, making this experience of soccer as a battle, as an epic experience. So that was my poetic game, my poetic, ese juego poético. Is that way you use poetry to think in a philosophical way, but also to think about other elements that sometimes you don't realize. And what's beautiful for me with these Latino students who love soccer so much, and when they knew that I was Spanish and I was from Madrid, they were all the time, la roja, because of the world champion 10 years ago in 2010, I guess. So then I realized here is a way I can communicate with the students and make them realize poetry can talk to them and talk about the experience they have. I believe that can be a way also to communicate. So sometimes when you look for poetry, you find poetry in the ways other people has appreciation for things, and it's what happened with me and young students who love soccer. Before the match, line up, take a position, let emotion build in the stands, those triumphant cries mixed with desire, yearning shared. Each shadow on the grass knows their fears when running out to fight each other bare-legged in a duel. Concentrate, know the spread of the field like an essential moving pawn where defends and guards a position, advance and looks for openings, an orchestrated moment, a precise pass, with communicating eyes that help score with each attempt the goal of victory. So I hope it makes sense to the lovely people who is listening at me. I wonder if you have questions, if you want ask me some questions. I'm trying to read. I'm reading your beautiful poems, comments, and I'm very grateful that you are here. So if you have questions that I will love to answer, no? And we are living a difficult moment, and I think poetry in these times are very important. I think poetry is a way to find serenity and to communicate to our soul and to find connections. I truly believe in poetry there is this kind of universal sense of being all together, and for me that is very important. For me that's the way to understand life and to have this opportunity to be with all of you and share a little bit of my poetry, and it's been a wonderful experience, and we have now to try to recreate how was that evening in Syracuse in the gallery. And I'm sad we are not there, but I'm happy we are here in this it's difficult. There is a one question: do you find it difficult to translate your poems into other languages? Yes, and is why it's great when you find wonderful translators like William Leer. I have also another wonderful translator. I've been working with her a lot, Elizabeth Polly, that she's been working with my early books of poetry. So I've been very lucky to find people who has the talent to translate, because sometimes from English to Spanish, of course, it's always easier, no? But when I'm, trying to think in English, well, now it's kind of natural. But there's this strange relationship when you have the writing test and you want to preserve what you are trying to say in Spanish into English. So I love if there is translators who help to make it, to make it work, because otherwise for me it's tough to translate. Sometimes I've been writing directly in English, but I do that just when I write academic essays about comic books and graphic novels. I have one part of my academic career as a scholar is as I'm a professor at the University of Iowa. I developed there the MFA in Spanish creative writing, but I also have a career as a comic scholar, comic books and graphic novels. So I had experience writing articles, academic articles in English, because I've been reading in English, working with the methodology in English, and that is also a very interesting experience because a few years ago, 3 years ago, I decided to transfer some of my academic articles in English into a book in Spanish. So I end having to do translations from my original in English into Spanish, and it was a nightmare. So I was like, oh my God, because it was so funny having to be myself in Spanish, speaking about comic books and graphic novels. So it's very, very interesting how the relationship with languages can be and can create different sensations and can transform you in a different character. So it's a interesting thing. Thank you for your comment. Well, there is a Kathy. Hi, Kathy. Kathy is giving us our great questions. They say, can you talk a little bit about writing novels versus writing poetry? Yes. Well, during the years I was developing. Okay, when you write poetry, and I started writing poetry when I was a very young person. When I was a kid, I write many diaries. I'm still writing a lot of diaries. For me, poetry was a way to build up on my emotions. It was a way to create my world of emotions and to define myself. And over the years, because now I'm almost 50, I'm 48 to 49, so I'm almost 50. In the last 10 years, when I crossed my 40s, I realized that the American experience I was having was telling me different things, that the world of people I was living with was telling me stories and making me understand the world in a different way. And I discovered fiction was a new space where I was able to make the atmosphere and the characters, many characters, to be alive. And I started my novel, The Map of Affections. But what happened is I was so concentrated developing the MFA at the University of Iowa that took me years to finish the novel. But fiction is a space where the noise and the world can talk to me, and characters can develop themselves. So I think rich fiction is rich also a mature space, and for me was very important to develop myself as a fiction writer, because fiction was there, but until I realized I was able to look around and listen to the essence of the humans, is when I realized I was able to write fiction. And I'm pretty happy because the book I wrote got that huge recognition, and now is out there, and people is enjoying the world that I am offering. So it's great to be able to work different literary spaces. I like that. And also with my poetic experience, I was able to develop a very kind of elaborate style in my prose. So that was also nice, because my prose was to write a long poem. I was really very, very careful, very craft, trying to make the experience of each chapter as if they had a poetic tone. So I really like that. Do you have more questions? Dice sueños. Tere, thank you for your questions. Gracias. Sueños, dreams, fantasies. Yeah, there is, yes, dreams and kind of daydreaming is very present on my poetry. And sometimes I analyze why this kind of daydreaming, this kind of very touchy elements are in my poetry. And I think, of course, I start writing poetry very young. And when you are very young, you are very emotional. And on the top of being a very emotional person, it was also, I'm epileptic. And I believe when you are epileptic and when you grow up epileptic, I was a little girl having a lot of absence. Then when I reached my teenagers year, I started having huge attacks. So I think the relationship you have with your brain, the relationship you have with your way of thinking and with your way of handling the limitations of your emotions and the limitations of your perspective, your life, being a teenager with epilepsy, in some way engrave this kind of daydreaming, this kind of poems touched by kind of dark and strange sensations. So that daydreaming, that sensation of abyss and some elements, I think they are connected with that experience of having a body that you take a while to understand and you take a while to handle. You know, epilepsy can be a very challenging condition. Now is under control, totally under control, because as you grow older, your brain kind of balance, and now I'm doing perfectly. But this kind of difficult years of being a teenager and being young, when you are trying to look for your identity, for yourself, and to recognize your body, when you are having epileptic attack, doesn't help and makes you a kind of isolated and afraid of many things. So I think that experience was on the way my poetry was helping me to cope with my fears and to understand the limitations of human conditions. So I think that poetry in that way was very important to heal, to give me the power to understand myself. I wonder if you have other questions, other curiosities. I use comic books and graphic novels on my teaching, and Patty is telling me, that she does also with middle school students, and yes, it's very useful. You can, I think, any element that can motivate the students to read, to understand storytelling, to understand communication. Is very important. So it's why suddenly I end being very, working with soccer and discovering, trying to understand the perspective of the students and the world. Dice, Josefa Pepa is asking, if is from this situation is going to come out a new poem of a new novella, a novel. Well, it's taking a while. Like, it's difficult. All this, like, suddenly life is hitting you with a lot of force, and it's very complex. How we are handling every day. What happened is, before the coronavirus, what happened before? In December, I was already working in a novel. I was working on my second novel. I have a new set of poems, and I'm working with poems. But at the same time, because I found this new kind of experience of putting together many emotions through fiction, I was working on my next novel. And the interesting thing is, everything in my next novel was happening between New England and Madrid. So, and I have a few characters that I've been already working with them, and I like, maybe because I am always between two continents, I like my stories. Like my first story, The Map of Affections, happened mostly in Iowa, but there is a part that is happening in Spain. Here is also happening that. So one of my main characters is in Spain in the fall of 2020. So what happened is, fall 2020 that I wrote cannot be the fall 2020. So what is happening now? So it's having an impact on the novel already. I don't know if I have to move this to fall 2019, or if I have to create 220, I have to change because what happens. So it's interesting how, suddenly you are creating fiction that is happening in the real world, and the real world is going in a totally different direction, and it's changing the way you're writing your fiction. There is so in some ways I have to think how I'm going to handle this reality in the book, in the fiction novel that I'm writing, that was happening in this world, in this reality, in the same year, and now everything is changing in this year. So, say, Braden, in fiction, do you write for others? Say, for example, if someone have a creative fiction story that they wanted to develop. Well, normally I write with my own ideas, but there is something very interesting. Like sometimes people ask you to write about, like, for example, they asked me to write a poem about how we were feeling. So I wrote a little poem for a magazine. So sometimes people ask you contributions. So writers do write contributions. But normally in fiction, I write, like, I get my idea and I develop my own idea. A ver. So is there any other questions that you maybe have? I wish we were having now a nice, moment all together sharing, but I hope you have your glass of wine or your nice, I have my nice glass of water, because epileptics we don't drink, but we are fine if you are enjoying your glass of wine and your cup of, I'm drinking some water with my Corto Maltese character from the comics. I wonder if you have maybe some other questions. Remember, these poems are going to be in the yes, Sarah is saying, wish we were going out for dinner. Yeah, me too. But next time that we have, like, I will be back, I will be in Syracuse, and we hug each other and we celebrate. We don't know when, but it will happen, I promise. My work is not, I don't create comics, but maybe one day I will. I write about comics. I write theory about comics. I have book for children, poetry for children, and I have a wonderful comic artist, Max, being one of the illustrators. So, but my essays, my writing about comics is more on theory about comics, and I have in different publications, different magazines. So that's what I do. But I did beautiful collaboration with Sergio Garcia and Max last year for in Granada. José Guerrero Museum, and we did a beautiful catalog, and it's in English, and it was a catalog with an essay, a story about what Max and Sergio Garcia did together, beautiful comic pieces, and I wrote some poems about comics. So that is my relationship, also creative relationship with comics. So thank you. Do you have a link to your? Well, you can write. Diana, you can find my articles at the University of Iowa, la Universidad de Iowa, in Iowa City, where my page, faculty page, there is also my bio with the reference. So if you Google me and search me, you can find El cómic hispánico is one of my books, was published by Cátedra, Signo Imagen, and I analyze the comics of Cuba, Argentina, Mexico, and Spain. I also, in my second comic, Pensar el cómic, I wrote a lot about the Latino comic artists, Los Hermanos Hernández, the Hernández brothers. I love their work. So yeah, so you can find some of my essays. So, well, I'm very grateful that you all are there. I'm like, oh, I don't want to go. I want to stay here speaking with all of you. it's been fantastic, and I hope I can someday, like be there at Syracuse, back there. I've been there in the past, and I would love to go back and see the Point of Contact Gallery, and I'm sure they are going to be there waiting for all of us, and we can celebrate poetry together next time. So I'm very, very grateful for all the time you've been with me, and for sharing, See, Sara, it's not goodbye. Yeah, it's see you soon. Yeah. Thank you so much. Gracias, muchísimas gracias por este rato tan bonito. Thank you. And from Madrid, my heart is with New York, with all of you, with Syracuse, with everyone there who loves poetry. Thank you. Y nos veremos pronto, I hope. And, all my love, muchos besos. Thank you. Muchísimas gracias. It was a wonderful time that I have with all of you, and reading your comments. It was great. Thank you. Muchas gracias. Adiós. Bye. Bye.